There are books that speak across centuries. Their words survive translation, interpretation, and time itself. And then, there are books that refuse to be understood. The Voynich Manuscript belongs to the latter. It sits within the boundaries of recorded history, catalogued, preserved, studied by experts. Yet it remains silent. Not because it is empty, but because no one can read it. This is not a lost language rediscovered, nor a damaged text awaiting reconstruction. This is a complete book, filled with consistent writing, intricate illustrations, and deliberate structure. And still, it defies comprehension. For centuries, scholars have believed that every written system, no matter how obscure, could eventually be decoded. Patterns yield to persistence. Scripts reveal their logic. Meaning, though hidden, leaves traces. But here is the unsettling part. The Voynich Manuscript appears to follow rules, linguistic rules, yet it communicates nothing we can definitively interpret. What if this is not a failure of translation? What if the text was never meant to be understood in the way we assume? And this is where the contradiction begins. The manuscript is believed to have been created in the early 15th century, a time when Europe was emerging from medieval rigidity into a cautious intellectual awakening. Universities were forming. Classical texts were being rediscovered. Knowledge, though still guarded, was beginning to circulate. Within this context, books were valuable, often rare, and typically written with clear purpose: religious instruction, medical knowledge, philosophical inquiry. A manuscript of this size and detail would not have been created lightly. It required resources, time, and intent. Carbon dating performed on the parchment places its origin between 1404 and 1438. This anchors it firmly in a specific historical moment. The ink, the materials, the craftsmanship all align with this period. Nothing about its physical composition suggests modern fabrication. This is not a hoax from a later century. This is a genuine artifact of its time. And yet, its content diverges sharply from everything else produced during that era. The text is written in an unknown script, often referred to as Voynichese. It is not a simple cipher of known languages. Its characters are consistent, forming words that repeat with recognizable patterns. Statistical analysis shows that it behaves like a natural language with structure, frequency distribution, and internal coherence. But no one has successfully mapped these symbols to any known linguistic system. And this is where history begins to bend. The manuscript takes its name from Wilfred Voynich, a Polish book dealer who acquired it in 1912. He found it in a collection at the Villa Mondragone near Rome, a place once used as a Jesuit college. The circumstances of its discovery are quiet, almost ordinary. There was no dramatic unveiling, no immediate recognition of its mystery. It was simply one manuscript among many. But as Voynich examined its pages, the strangeness became undeniable. The book contained detailed illustrations, plants that did not match known species, diagrams that suggested astronomical or biological processes, and human figures, often female, immersed in elaborate, almost surreal environments. There were circular charts, flowing structures, and sequences that hinted at some form of systematic knowledge. Yet nothing aligned clearly with known disciplines. Not botany, not astronomy, not medicine. Familiar elements were present, but rearranged into something unrecognizable. Voynich, recognizing its uniqueness, brought it to the attention of scholars. Linguists, cryptographers, historians, all attempted to unlock its meaning. Some believed it was a cipher, a coded message hiding beneath layers of substitution. Others suspected it might represent an unknown or constructed language. The manuscript passed through the hands of experts, including codebreakers who had worked on military encryption during the World Wars. These were individuals trained to find patterns where none were obvious. And still, the text resisted. Physically, the manuscript consists of around 240 pages, though some are missing. It is written on vellum, a durable material made from animal skin. The ink has faded in places, but remains largely intact. The illustrations are colored, suggesting that the manuscript was not merely functional, but intended to be visually engaging. The writing flows from left to right, with consistent spacing and formatting. There are no corrections, no visible signs of hesitation. Whoever created this text wrote with confidence. And this is where the contradiction deepens. If the manuscript is a cipher, it is extraordinarily sophisticated, far beyond what is typically found in medieval cryptography. If it is a language, it has left no trace elsewhere. No inscriptions, no related texts, no evolution. It exists in isolation. But here is the unsettling part. Analysis of the text reveals patterns similar to known languages, such as Zipf's law, where word frequency follows a predictable distribution. This suggests that the text is not random. It behaves as if it carries meaning. The illustrations are often grouped into sections. One appears botanical, filled with drawings of plants, each accompanied by blocks of text. Another section resembles astronomical charts, with circular diagrams that may represent celestial movements. There are pages that seem biological, showing human figures interacting with fluid-like systems. Some scholars have interpreted these as representations of anatomy or early medical theories, but no interpretation has been universally accepted. Throughout the manuscript's history, various attempts have been made to decode it. In the 20th century, William Friedman, one of the leading American codebreakers, studied the text extensively. He concluded that it was likely not a simple cipher, but perhaps a constructed language. Even with the resources of modern cryptography, he was unable to decipher it. His work, though inconclusive, reinforced the manuscript's complexity. In recent decades, computational analysis has been applied. Algorithms have searched for patterns, correlations, and possible linguistic roots. Some researchers have proposed that the text may encode a natural language using a complex system of abbreviation or transformation. Others suggest it could be a form of glossolalia, meaningless writing that mimics the structure of language. But here is where the debate intensifies. If it is meaningless, why does it exhibit such consistent structure? Why the repetition, the variation, the apparent grammar? There are also theories that the manuscript was a form of intellectual exercise, a demonstration of knowledge or a personal project by an unknown author. Some have suggested it could be a medical text, perhaps documenting herbal remedies or early scientific observations. The presence of plant illustrations supports this idea. But the plants themselves do not match known species, raising further questions. Are they stylized representations, composite images, or entirely imagined? And this is where the tension remains unresolved. The manuscript is too structured to be random, too isolated to be a known language, and too consistent to be dismissed as nonsense. It occupies a space between meaning and ambiguity. Scholars continue to study it, not because they expect a sudden breakthrough, but because it challenges fundamental assumptions about language, communication, and intent. The manuscript eventually found its way to the Yale University, where it is housed in the Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library. It is preserved under controlled conditions, accessible to researchers, digitized for global study. Its pages are no longer hidden, yet its meaning remains concealed. This is not due to lack of effort. It is the result of a text that does not yield. And so, the Voynich Manuscript endures not as a solved puzzle, but as an ongoing question. It reminds us that history is not always a linear narrative of discovery and understanding. Sometimes, it presents us with artifacts that resist interpretation, that exist without clear purpose, that challenge the boundaries of knowledge. There is no final conclusion here, no definitive answer waiting just beyond the next analysis. Only a manuscript, written in a script that no one can read, filled with images that no one can fully explain. It does not ask to be believed. It does not offer clarity. It simply exists, and perhaps that is the most unsettling part of all. And yet, the longer it resists interpretation, the more the Voynich manuscript begins to shift from an object of decoding into something closer to an intellectual mirror. It forces a question that extends beyond cryptography or linguistics. What does it mean for meaning itself to fail under analysis? Every known system of writing emerges from shared context, culture, necessity, transmission across generations. But here, that chain appears severed. No surviving key, no companion text, no parallel tradition. And this is where a deeper unease begins to form. If meaning is always relational, dependent on a network of human understanding, then a text without context becomes something else entirely. A structure that resembles communication without participating in it. Some scholars have suggested that this is precisely why the manuscript remains compelling. It does not simply hide information. It exposes the limits of interpretation itself. Even modern computational models, designed to detect hidden structures at scale, circle the text without resolution. They confirm order, but not origin, pattern, but not purpose. And perhaps this is the final contradiction. The manuscript behaves as though it should be understood, yet consistently denies completion. Preserved today at the Yale University, it continues to sit in silence, not as a solved enigma, but as a stable uncertainty. In that silence, it becomes less a message waiting to be read, and more a reminder that not all systems built to convey meaning are guaranteed to surrender it.